all for coming tonight. We're really excited about sharing the progress of this project. My name is Nick Kacholfi. I am the Recreation Director for the town of Winchester. I turned it on. This microphone is not for my voice tonight. We're actually taping with WinCam for those that can't be here. So we'll be holding this, but it's not going to project our voice. So we look a little foolish, but here we are. I'd like to just make some introductions tonight. To my left is Matt Schumann. He's the town engineer. He's very heavily involved in this project. I have Jeff Ketteritz from VHB on the engineering team, and I have Chris Huntress also on our development team from Huntress Sports. They're going to be presenting tonight about where we're at with the project. We just finished up our second round of development and design, they're going to have probably about a 10-minute presentation, and then we'll open it up to any questions. And then once the question period is over, I'll talk about next steps and where we're at in this process. As a reminder, this is a very intricate area. There's a lot happening with stormwater, the pond. You know, the courts are over 100 years old, so it is a process, and we're getting there, though. You know, we talked about a couple years ago when we were just trying to get the wheels turning on this. It's moving, and that's a great sign. So we're excited to show you where we're at. Again, we still have a little bit more of design, so we welcome feedback at the end. But I'm going to pass the mic over to our development team.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to stay seated if that's okay with everybody. I apologize, but I'm running the computer at the same time. So can everybody see the screen to my right? So my name's Chris Huntress. I'm with Huntress Sports. We're landscape architects and planners. We specialize in athletics, recreation projects. We've been working with Jeff and his team over at VHB who are coordinating the civil and engineering side. This is a multifaceted project. It's got parts of it that we're touching up in Palmer Road. We're talking about working in the floodplain. We've got 100-year flood here, and we're into wetland buffers down by the beach as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of reasons that we did what we did are driven by the regulatory aspect of some of the things that we have to deal with as well. So I'm going to walk you through. Many of you know this site. I'm assuming most of you do. But this is an overview of just the bank of the existing courts. Some of the challenges that come along with this site predominantly are access, visibility, and when I say access, I mean ADA, Accessible Americans with Disabilities Act. How do people arrive? How do they get into the courts? How do you get through the courts without interrupting another match that's already on board? So we took a hard look at some of that along with the program over the course of the last year. And the thing that probably presents us with some of the most challenges is this edge of the courts right here as it addresses Palmer Street. Very difficult edge. It's stable right now for the most part, although there's some instability in a couple of the walls, and we'll show you where that is. However, the 100-year floodplain comes right up to the bottom of the wall where the courts meet the wall. So it really affects any cutting, filling, construction activity that's associated with this, and it really, it had a lot to do with how we laid the site out. The existing stairs that come down into the court now from Palmer, there's a couple of sets. This happens to be one of them. They're not code compliant any longer, probably haven't been for a long time. So we have to reimagine and rethink how we'll do that. The courts themselves are pretty well laid out. They're not oriented north-south, which would be preferred. They're more east-west. But they're very efficient in the way that they're laid out, and they work rather well. So we kept that major orientation. We looked at things. It's a little hard to tell in this photo, but as you move across this site, even from one bank to another, there are small grade changes and small steps as you go across. We fixed some of that, and we created one small new one someplace. A lot of this comes in, again, the cut and fill and the balancing of the site from a stormwater perspective. The existing entrance that comes from the beach area has a practice board, and we're looking at ways to kind of reintroduce that into the site. We are looking with Jeff and his team about reconstructing the main access drive that comes down into the site, and we'll show you a little more on that. And just to kind of go back up by Palmer, this is the section that really is the most challenging for us in we understand that although it's stable now, these walls are moving. You can see that wall starting to lean in from Palmer Street. That's getting either its foundation has been undermined, or it's getting some hydrologic pressure from the back that's forcing that wall forward. So that's got to be addressed in the new plans. And these are just a couple shots around, all up on Palmer and down and into the site as well. And this kind of shows the access over on the farthest section of the court. This is very hard to read. I'm not going to ask you to look at this too much, but it is the existing condition survey. And the reason it's here is I wanted to let everyone know we've surveyed the site, we've flagged the wetlands, we understand where the utilities are, and we understand what the opportunities and constraints are associated with this site. So that was one of the first things that Jeff and his team did. As we advance from the existing conditions, one of the first things we did was create a master plan for the site that addressed some of the major needs. Again, we left the orientation of the courts predominantly as they were in that kind of east-west organization. There were, I'm going to say 15 courts, Nick, do I have that right? And we've gone to 13 courts. Where we've eliminated courts are in the two banks in the middle. We've gone from 4 courts to 3 courts. And the reason that we've done that is, A, to give a little bit more separation between the courts so we can be a little more compliant with USTA requirements, but also to create that walkway access that would bring not only players but able-bodied and disabled-bodied individuals through the site. So that creates our accessible route, if you will, to get in and around to the various courts. So we started with this as a concept plan and then developed it into a set of working drawings. And some of it changed. The predominantly stayed the same. But this is the overall site plan. So again, we're at a total of, I'm going to say 13 courts with a concrete walkway that comes from the renovated parking area through the main body of the courts, and then goes perpendicular to Palmer, goes up to Palmer through a set of stairs and a ramp system, and we've placed a building up at the top along Palmer, which would be a check-in building, bathroom building, and the like, and we'll get into that in a little more detail. I'm going to turn this over to Jeff and let him talk a little bit more about some of the site utilities and grading and drainage issues.
Good evening. Jeff Ketteritz with VHB. So as Chris mentioned, obviously, and I'm sure you all are aware with the site that grading and drainage and stormwater are significant considerations, just given what is our constraints there with Wedge Pond. This is a unique site where it's kind of the low point of a lot of adjacent areas and a lot of drainage coming onto this site. So we've been studying, looking at, the project itself and what we can do to mitigate that stormwater flooding and runoff, but as well as trying to look at additional areas abutting and what we could do to keep water off of the courts primarily. A couple highlights here. This is the grading and drainage plan, as Chris mentioned. Just about the entire site is within the 100-year floodplain. And I think one important part that we focused in on in working with Nick and Matt was locating the facility building that's supporting this elevated up at Palmer Street, so it gets those facilities out of the floodplain in proximity to the street. The courts will still remain within the floodplain, but this project includes substantial stormwater infiltration systems that will help mitigate that runoff. So you can see that the gray boxes, what those are is subsurface chambers that would be beneath the courts, and those are intended to store and infiltrate stormwater runoff. As mentioned, our goal is to get the courts as clear as possible. Also off to the left of the screen, you can see some line work here is we're looking at some site grading to be able to capture kind of low-lying areas, and again with the intent to sheet the water off the courts as quickly as possible. This will come with a full stormwater management plan addressing water quality, treatment, and quantity mitigation. 2 other areas I just want to highlight within the parking lot. Can you see the cursor on there or no? Okay, all right.
We're going to zoom in on the parking lot in just a minute.
All right. Got it. The parking lot includes 2 surface basins, one in the middle of the parking area, one just to the south, and that's intended for stormwater to sheet flow, provide water quality treatment, but again, get the stormwater off the parking and tennis court areas. Yes, perfect. The dark green there. I'll flip to the utilities real quick. So the green infrastructure you see here, this is the drainage system. As Chris mentioned, we did a full site survey. What we found of the drainage, what was there was limited, probably at best. Some pipes that not functioning entirely, maybe blocked up. So the plan of this project is a full replacement of the drainage system to ensure that that's functioning, including replacement up to the outlet at Wedge Pond. And as part of the next steps, we'll need to be going through the permitting process with conservation and planning to to complete that review. But the intent is a full replacement of the drainage system to ensure that it's functioning. Other utility-wise, the benefit of locating the facility building, which Chris can get into in more detail up by Palmer Street, is it locates those services closer to the mains. Perfect. So there are some restrooms as well as the ticketing area or an office space there, but water sewer services as well as power to that building. So the intent is keeping that closer to Palmer Street and also importantly out of the floodplain. This is an enlargement of the parking area, maybe just to speak to the circulation. So the intent is keeping the general layout of what's out there, the gravel drive coming off. Some of the challenges, obviously the existing drive down is probably about 12 feet wide or so. Not really conducive to getting one emergency vehicle access if it's ever needed down there. But as we try to reinforce the parking down, providing adequate drive aisle width. So the plan includes reconstruction of the entry drive down off of Palmer Street, which is the gray hatched area. And then a bit of a loop of the parking. There's 15 parking spaces that'll be created here, including accessible parking spaces nearest to the sidewalk accessing the courts, and the intent is to maintain the existing egress drive out through the adjacent. Technically, it runs through the adjacent parcel from the housing authority, I believe, but that access would remain as currently. There is some. You can see to the plan south. There's a sidewalk connection. It's I'll call that beige, I guess. Running south and then off to the bottom corner. So there's some access for maintenance vehicles, for delivering the clay and repairing, resurfacing the courts as needed, as well as maintaining an access point to the beach for the town as well.
Before we jump off of that,
Their scope ends where that begins. So the new volleyball courts come into here. So this is your Wedge Pond here. This is all the beachfront. This is the beach house. So the volleyball courts will be here and here. Beach house can stay?
the beach house stays in this current design. We haven't been asked to take it away. So in this current design, the beach house stays. I did want to point out, maybe, Nick, you can help me, but one of the things that was impacted with this new driveway coming down into the site, or this reconstructed driveway, is the existing practice board area. And because this driveway got a little bit wider and the grades associated with that had to, go further down into the site, we did remove that, and that's one of the things we're working with Nick as to where, the backboard area.
Have that on a discussion topic and something looking for a solution for the next round as we go towards construction.
We've got several options, so we're kicking those around.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out what the plan is.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It may go to another facility, it may go somewhere else.
if you've got questions on that, I'd be happy to. I'll stick around at the end and I can talk about what some of the various options are that we're looking at. Yes. The tree would be taken down as part of the plan. Yep. Yep.
That one's dying, actually.
Yeah.
We've been holding on, but it's dropping
That's the one
branches.
that people complain about every year because the limbs are dying.
Yeah.
So,
It is a beautiful tree, though.
So I'm gonna walk you through the plan as it touches Palmer Street, and we'll talk a little bit more about the building and a little bit more about those areas. But Nick, maybe you can help me to point.
Yep.
Start over by the reconstructed driveway. We are replacing the wall in its entirety all along the front, and we would have 19 feet off the edge of the courts that are closest to the wall from the edge of court over to the base of the wall. Base of the wall is roughly in the location of the existing base of the wall today because of the floodplain issues. It's about 9.5 feet tall and would run all the way along those two courts. It would terminate into a set of stairs that would come down from the upper drop-off area and down right into that middle aisle. Immediately beyond that would be the check-in building up at Palmer Street elevation, and then further to what would be my left of that would be a ramp system for ADA access that would get you down and into the courts as well and tie into the walkway. So we were able to create what was kind of a secondary egress point into a primary egress point by making it handicapped accessible, getting the building up and out of the floodplain, which has a lot of benefit to it, and taking advantage of some of those grades and utility access points that are further down Palmer. I'm going to go quickly over this plan because it's tough to read, admittedly. This is a cross-section through the site that just shows some of the grade changes between the building itself and down to the courts, but I can tell you, in essence, it's a 9.5 foot tall wall that would drop down to court level. When you're up at the street, we're going all the way from the curb to the wall now. I'm going to back up there. All the way from the curb at Palmer over to the wall would be a flat concrete terrace that would effectively give you a viewing area. We can talk about whether we put benches up there or shade structures or other things, but what we tried to do is create that flat terrace and flat viewing platform with a 4-foot ornamental fence that would be a barricade for somebody. The existing fence would be gone. The existing walls and the existing cobble slope, that would all go away, and a new wall would be constructed in front. And that re-supports some utility work within Palmer Street itself, but provides a much more stable condition than we have today.
And maybe just to tack on the wall note, we studied pretty heavily our options to address the wall. Was there a way we could salvage part of it, repair it, and it just, after reviewing with our geotechnical and structural engineers, it wasn't appropriate to do that, which is why we're presenting to essentially reconstruct the entire wall. Roughly, yes.
At its highest point, it's 9 feet. The material will be concrete, but it will be faced with a, you've probably seen them, it's a monolithic block. The individual blocks are about the size of this table, but they have a pressed front to it that makes it look like natural stone. You can get, New England granite, you can get limestone face, you can get, there's a lot of different options. So those would be your options on the wall.
And one of the things I just want to point out, which I thought was really important, is it creates a congregation zone where we can have, where we can congregate after tournaments. We can set up, tables and vendors and stuff like that. So it gives us quite a bit more space up there to do that. And that was important to us.
What about viewing on this side? I mean, so the canopy, the existing structure, all that's going to go away.
Gone, correct.
Right. So your viewing would be from that upper terrace all the way across the middle two banks of courts, and we left an 8-foot walkway around the back side of the proposed building so that you could circulate around the back and see that other bank of courts. But I think your visibility down and into the site is actually going to be significantly improved. We did look at some options that included banked terrace bleacher seating and a few other things, but the cost of that got very expensive very quickly. And this was a more cost-effective way to approach it but I think in the end is a much more usable space as well, because it gives you a lot more flexibility up at the top.
Currently, there's one long bench.
Right.
So it's been, accommodating for the most part.
Right.
It's not like you need a bleacher there.
I don't think so. I think we may want to consider some benches up here. My thought was we would do some backless benches through the middle of that space. You could face either way. Much of everything that you see on the existing hillside now, the walls, the fences, benches, trees, have to go.
Because that's all the concrete, we poured concrete, put in all those.
If there are benches that can be salvaged, we can take those out of there before we do the demo and save them and reuse them.
We've done that on other
Yeah.
projects, so if they're in good shape, we just relocate them.
People have purchased those, so
I understand.
we have name plaques on those, and that was a beautiful area to sit and watch. That's where people sit and
Right. The problem is it's not presently handicapped accessible, and we can't, yeah.
Yeah,
We can salvage
that's the
those
piece
benches.
that we want to kind of encompass with this area is that we can create it to make it a beautiful sitting area. We anticipate benches, we anticipate shade structures, that's all in this plan that we would anticipate that we're going to put this in. We've even talked about some lights that are going to go along here to give us some more visibility and when it's dusk and you're leaving, make it more safe.
So right now, just for example, right now, we've expanded this 3 or 4 picnic benches now. So whenever there's a tournament, we bring in, Friday night social, we bring in food or drinks and meeting places for that. That's a continuous.
I think you'll have more space to do those kinds of activities in this plan than you do presently on the current site. And it will be accessible to everybody, as opposed.
By having it in this area, then the viewpoint to these courts now is a bit more difficult since this is gone. That's right.
There is not seating over in that area, that's right, yeah.
Let's say there is a fountain.
Yep, yeah. That's where the handicap ramp comes down, so yeah.
Think about how it goes down, it'll be kind of a wall.
There'll be a series of terrace walls through that.
But this will all be areas where people can also.
I'm gonna pause questions for just a minute. I'm gonna go through the rest of the presentation, then we can certainly circle back, because we may answer some of your questions as we continue. I say that, and then my computer decides not to work with me. There we go. Let's get past this one. This is an example of what the building would look like up on Palmer Street. And this is where we are today. It could be like this, it could be different, but this is one example. And the way the program of this building is that the 2 roll-up windows that you see would be the location of the check-in and office component of the site. The 2 doors that you see just to the right of that would be a women's room and a men's room, and you see a water bottle filling station in the middle. There would be some storage and mechanical space within the building itself, but the primary goal here is office and check-in space, which is on the left side of the building, men's room, women's room, and utility corridor access. So it would be a single slope building. This would be a board and batten finish with a fibrous cement board and batten and like a hardy plank type of a finish, and that's probably a better close-up look at it. This is a fairly efficient building, and I think a reasonably attractive building as well. And having it right up on the arrival point, right at Palmer, provides a lot of value. The other important thing to remember about bringing it up to Palmer is it now made our utility connections for water and sewer that much easier because all the utilities were significantly closer. Is that fair to say?
Yes, very much.
They're not right there, but they're closer. That's a water bottle. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a water fountain and a water bottle filling station. I'm going to take you through some of the details. These aren't exciting for anybody except me, so I won't waste too much time. One thing I will tell you, and I should have led with this, the surface is going to be clay. It's clay today. It's going to be clay when we're done. The only hard surface that we're introducing down there is the concrete walkway. So much of the way the courts play from a surface perspective, which I know is important to tennis folks, is going to stay the same. We are introducing, these are just standard details for tennis court layout and nets. We are aware of USDA requirements. We often work with our clients to secure USDA grants for construction. Nick's asked us to look at that, so we are looking at that as well. But just so so folks are aware, these are 100% compliant with USDA dimensions, regulations, and code issues. Between the banks of courts where that concrete walkway comes through, we've located 6, 2 banks of 3 of small shade structures with benches in between. It's a nice place for gathering, for rest, and for kind of arrival points, if you will. Those are beyond the main walkway. And again, just some details for handicapped accessibility, stairs, and some of the fences. And that's the bulk of our presentation. I'm going to go back to the main site plan, and then I'm happy to go back to questions and anywhere that you'd like to go. Nick, do you want to talk about next steps next, and then we can go into questions?
Sure. So I'll do next steps real quick. So right now we finished round 2 of the engineering design. We will be getting a proposal for by the end of the month, which will come with what the cost will be for final engineering, permitting, construction docs, which will be going to Capital Committee and WCCP, which is the new Community Preservation, for funding to get us to the finish line, so to speak, to get us ready for construction. So there's 2 more asks, right? There's an ask for this final phase to get us through permitting and construction docs. And then once we have that set, then it's an ask for the actual construction. We won't know the estimates until the next round is done, so we don't have a cost for all this yet. That's part of the process, and we know that that's the biggest and most important one. So right now, this is where we're at. We have a few more things to work out in the next round, but we'll have construction docs, permitting, everything ready to go for that piece. As Chris mentioned, I'm working closely with the USTA Venue Services with a project this size where there will be I believe we're eligible for $225,000 for USTA grant. It's not guaranteed, but when you start early in the process with USTA and you work with them, you're in kind of more of a fast track than you are coming in blindly. So we're hoping that we get some money from USTA. We anticipate many different funding sources for this project when we get to construction. So we know that there's going to be a water and sewer component. So there might be reaching into some enterprise funds through that department because of all the stormwater. We know that recreation enterprise will be chipping in. We'll have the WCCP. We'll be going for capital money. We'll be doing grant. And of course, all these projects, the sweetener on the top is to try to do some fundraising and privatized funding. We're hoping we get some people that are willing to help get the ball rolling with that. We're working with the Friends of Winchester Recreation, and there's a lot of vested other groups in that area. The Friends of Wedge Pond are interested in a lot of the stuff we're doing down there as well. So this is a multifaceted project, and we know that recreation projects in town typically have a lot of different funding sources to get it to the finish line, but I am pretty confident that we will get there. I mean, we're at the halfway point. We got to make that push. So I'm welcome to talk to anybody more about funding and how that's going to look, but that's where we're at with the project. So with that being said, I guess we'll open it up to any questions.
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is here's a picture of the tree. There's no way we can do everything that we just talked about and save that tree. That tree would have to be removed. However, having said that, one of the steps that we really haven't gotten to, let me get back to the plan here. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. is we do have some green space that we've created up around the top, mostly within this ramp area. I'm just going to come over here. We've got green space in through here that we can plant. We can talk about, Nick, we really haven't talked much about it, but if you wanted street tree plantings up around Palmer, we could do that. We've certainly created the room for the root growth by moving that wall or that walkway terrace out. But beyond that, we'd have to look at periphery areas, say down in the parking lot by the beach, or potentially up by this ramp, or off to the side. We own a little bit more land this way. This is predominantly forested in through here. There'll be a little bit of clearing of some of the pines in this area for a couple of reasons. One is for stormwater. The other is to get some of the pine needles away from the court surface here. But there's room around these peripheries to plant if that's what the town would like to do.
The tree is asking for somebody to get hurt. It's just a matter of when. The lowest branches, we say duck, and put cones there.
Yeah. I'm a landscape architect. I love trees. However, that tree's got to go.
I love trees too, but it's like when we knew the railing was going and then someone took a tumble, the tree is about to hurt someone that's not paying attention. So I love trees too, let's put it in one.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna get hurt and we're gonna be in trouble.
Yes, sir.
What about irrigation?
Irrigation is part of the plan.
Are they gonna be sprinklers or underground?
It will be a little bit of a combination of both, but we haven't designed the irrigation system yet. It's part of the construction document phase. Right now, we're just trying to get everything organized.
Obviously, other places, et cetera, when irrigation is under the courts, it's much more even.
I expect it'll be a subsurface irrigation system. I just have to coordinate it with all Jeff's utilities.
That's huge.
Yes, there was a question down here,
So, this area where the slope is for the handicap,
right here.
the middle, the green.
Yes.
What do you anticipate? Is that okay, since the slope is down, could you put bleachers there, for example?
We could consider a terrace or a bleacher in there. It's an odd space because this wall that is along the interior is going to be constantly changing in elevation as it moves around. What we would have to do is pick up this wall basically to the elevation of where this building is and create kind of an extended platform over here. So the short answer is, could we do it? Yes, we could. It would be dramatically expensive because of the wall work and the additional site work that would be required there. Possibly. Yes, sir.
What's the odds of this getting passed? Does the town have to vote and say,
I'm not a gambler, so I'm gonna give that to Nick.
we don't want to get excited and all of a sudden it's 7 years?
Yeah, great question. So I've been in the town for 6 years, and not a lot had happened with recreation spaces. So in the last 6 years, a lot of things have occurred, including the WCCP, which is the community preservation group, right? And there's dedicated funds now that have to be spent on open space and recreation. At least 10% of the total take has to go towards that. And there is a backlog of projects, but this is one of those top tier projects where we're going to be putting forward. So they're not going to be able to pay for the entire project, but there will be some money that we can start to go for, and we're in a good spot because that was never there before. I think last year, in their year one, the amount that they had in the account was $1.6 million, and they didn't spend it all. So there was 4 or 5 actually recreation-based projects that got funded or partially funded out of that account. There's also affordable housing that's in one of its own bucket, and also historic preservation. Now, this could also qualify for historic preservation. So it could be a historic preservation WCCP ask, and it could be recreation. I'm not an expert in it, but I know that 102-year-old clay tennis courts, to me, sounds like it's historic preservation. So that we might be able to get a little bit more than the typical recreation take on a project like this.
What's the timetable? Is that like another 3 years?
So it's hard to say because we have to look at the financial climate of the town and where everything is at. The next phase of project we're looking at least, we kind of mapped it out.
Yeah, I would say, once we get into the next permitting phase, would assume about a 2 to 3 month period to get through the local approvals with conservation planning and zoning, and then we would roll into construction documents, which maybe that's about a 2 month process after that. So that's ballpark what we'd be looking at from getting the design ready to go out to bid.
So I think when we talked, I was eyeballing at least next cycle, so next spring, to at least start asking for some money for construction docs. I think that was part of what we're looking at. And that could take us a little while to build up all that money, but next spring we'll at least have a good push to start funding.
What would the logistics be of the construction? In other words, let's say everything comes to pass and it looks like it's a go. Artemis, take it up to space, and it's gonna work. When would you do it? You know, would there be a season? How much of a season would we lose?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's hard to without a construction manager on board. It's hard to do that, but I would like to think this is a it's hard to make that a 1 year process though, right? Yeah.
It could be shorter or longer depending on when the time of year that we started. If we were to start it, say right now in April, there's a possibility that we could have the courts return to play by say October, November, and they'd be ready for the next spring. If we started in October, November, it would be a longer process.
Mhm.
A lot of it depends on when the timing of when we work contract. That's 3 years out.
Pretty much the work would have to be in the spring or summer, and it's not, you're not looking at December.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Is the lovely bathhouse going to be raised, in the parking lot?
The plan is to leave that in place at least as part of this.
And just so you all know, there's multiple projects going on in town right now. One of the projects is we're revitalizing the Beauregard area and the Friends of Wedge Pond. There's some of them over here. Actually got some money from the WCCP, and they're working hard on revitalizing the area. Part of that is sprucing up that bathhouse so it's not such an eyesore. We're working on those, but there's 3 projects in that area right now, and until one gets done, we can't start the next, and then we can't start the next. But if you've been down there recently, it looks ridiculously different than it did last year. I
You can you're living in the past, but we have a splendid collection of permanent trophies. Is there any way that the new check-in place could feature the trophies?
I would say, yeah, we could design, so I think that's actually a good idea to have a bit of a nostalgia and some of that stuff in there. I think we could look into implementing some of that stuff as we design the next phase. Right, right. Hold on one second. I can't hear that question. So we'll be asking for, so the warrant is closed this time, but the capital cycle starts in June for us, for department heads. So, and I'm still trying to figure out when they're going to release the WCCP too. Usually they're right around the same time. So I wouldn't be able to get it on this warrant anyway because the next cycle doesn't start till this summer. And it will be so if we do get moved forward to town meeting, it would be a fall town meeting vote for the funding for the next round.
Thank you for all your work. I have 2 questions, if I may. First one, is there a possibility for lighting so it allows for evening play?
I would say anything's possible. However, we already know that there is a huge contingent of neighbors that are not really into having lights down there and would not support the project if it included nighttime tennis play. So I think that's kind of a deterrent for us. We are open from basically the time the sun comes up till the sun goes down. Majority of the play happens during when the sun is up for the longest. So our hours are pretty robust. So I think even stretching into the evening might be a tough ask. Yeah, we need the support from the neighbors, especially those on Lantern Lane and Andy who lives behind us. Andy.
Make a big boulder. And then the second one is with regard to the parking situation on Park Street. It's a lot of dangerous situation with cars parked at two sides of the road. Can that be reconstructed?
Great question. So at our last wrap-up meeting with DPW, Bob Lavoisier, our DPW director, brought up some things that he'd like to see as part of next round. And what we're going to be looking at is he would like to put in a sidewalk on the far side. So once a sidewalk is on the other side of the road, then we can start to put in crosswalks. And you can't connect a crosswalk to nothing. So that's part of his plan, is to make more room for parking on both sides, creating a walkway and a crosswalk. It's very dangerous over there, and that's part of some of the discussions that we've had.
We have just along this edge that we're touching right along Palmer, we have better delineated some of the spaces, and we've added a handicap drop-off area and parking space here as well. So we've got accessibility now from the upside, and we wrapped some of the painting to give a better turning radius into this as well. So there's some better protected spaces up along Palmer, and we added that one handicap space there as well.
And another part of that drop off is to also accommodate buses for students coming off, and the intent is for them to be able to load and unload safely at that location as well.
Any thought to the monument? The Packer Ellis monument to redeploy?
Yeah, so when we do these projects, we typically find a way to integrate all that stuff and keep it. We just did it over at one of the parks, the new playground over at McDonald, and we integrate a lot of that stuff and keep it. So that'll definitely be something that we continue to make sure it's taken care of.
Could you talk a little bit about how you're going to reconstruct the tennis courts? Like, are you going to dig down and create a new foundation and base and build it up that way, or just how do you?
Sure. Yeah, we're planning on a full replacement of the entire profile of the court. So not just the clay surface, but the aggregate supporting it beneath. So we'll probably rip most of it up anyways to get the drainage systems that we're looking at. And then as part of restoring that will be a completely new base material. And oh, awesome. Awesome.
What are they gonna do with the wedge pond, right? Like thinking about some of that stuff?
I mean, we kind of want to take up this meeting, so I mean, we're happy to tell you about that, but I want to make sure your tennis questions are answered first.
I just have another question about the house. Are there windows on the court side so that the court attendants can look at that first bank or third bank, whatever you're calling it? We're seeing the side to the side. What's the other side?
Yeah, we haven't put windows on the backside yet, primarily because on the backside, we've got, there's a doorway off the back here.
So where's the front on that?
The front, this is the front that would face Palmer, okay? You'd have these two roll-up windows that would greet people as they arrive. On the back side of this office building would be the door here to get in. We didn't want to take up room on the front with the door, so we put it around the back. But we did include an 8-foot walkway around the entirety of the back with a 4-foot ornamental fence. So you can walk around the back of that building to view the courts. If you're in that building, you can just step outside and you'll have good visibility of the courts.
Court attendants, and sometimes it's hot, they want to get out of the beating sun, so they have to get out of the building to see all the courts.
Well, they do and they don't. If they physically want to see them, yes, they do. But there's also, we talked about a camera system that we could include that would give anybody inside this building visibility across all the courts from a safety perspective. If they just want to get out and see the courts, all they have to do is.
I'm just thinking of the safety so that they can see that somebody's fallen and.
So there will be cameras that will show all the courts. If they want to see anything. All they have to do is take a step out the back door. There's a 4-foot walkway to a fence, and then they're 9.5 feet above the court level. They can see all the courts.
One thing to note too is this is an example what the building could look like. We could, if we decided that we wanted to put a window back there, it makes sense. That's something that we could. But
Well,
it's a good point, something that we can consider.
Yeah, one thing that would be difficult would be to take that building, say, and move it 8 feet back to integrate it with the wall would be difficult. Just from a structural standpoint, it just changes the whole foundation design. It gets a lot more expensive if we were to do that, which is why we kept it intentionally with an 8-foot walk that went around it so that we could do a traditional foundation. And we can certainly add a window. Anybody else? Thank you. We'll stick